Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 12 o'clock. It's a Sunday and it's time for a Q&A. This is where I take all the questions that you've asked over the last 2 weeks and I answer them to the best of my ability. For everybody that had really nice things to say about the award show last week, thank you very much. Myself and Ryland put a lot of time and effort into that. We really wanted to make it something that you guys really got a kick out of, and it was so wonderful to see all the positive comments. It made it all worthwhile because it was a lot of time and effort. But because of that award show, it means that we've kind of got more questions than normal in this Q&A. So there's going to be a lot of questions that I'm going to be answering, and I'm going to try and get to them. But before I do, remember, if you have a question for me, if you could leave it in this video, that would be great. We put so many videos up and there's so many comments now. It's very difficult to find questions if they're put in a different video. So if we could keep all of the questions on this particular video, that would be amazing. But now let's get straight into answering some questions. Okay, so the first question comes from Stanley Zhao. How are you doing, Stanley? I know you've asked questions on the channel a lot. Thank you very much. And his question is, what is your least favorite plot in card magic? Mine has to be follow the leader. My least favorite plot in card magic, I think it's anything to do with dealing cards into piles over and over and over and over again. Now, there are ways to make it entertaining. There are ways to make countless amounts of dealing entertaining. It has been done before, and I can probably cite several examples. But generally, as a rule, 97% of the stuff that's put out that involves excessive counting and dealing isn't very good. And that was all today. I kind of covered this on the rant that I did a few weeks ago about magician foolers. And the problem with a lot of magician fooling card tricks is it involves a lot of counting and a lot of dealing and a lot of, right, now take this packet, now deal this many cards onto this packet. I just find it boring, and I think laymen find it boring as well. And although I like jamming with magicians and I love performing to magicians and I like lecturing to magicians, they're not my customers at the end of the day. The people that are my customers, the people that pay the bills, are the people that I perform to, the general public, laymen. And so I'm always kind of thinking, what would they enjoy watching? What would a layman enjoy watching? And I just don't think that many laymen enjoy tricks that involves an excessive amount of dealing, you know, especially when there's so many other amazing card tricks that you can do. Just take the ambitious card, for example. Laymen freak over the ambitious card. The card jumps to the top of the deck over and over again. It normally ends up in an impossible location. Surely that's better than over-proving that you don't know where the card is by dealing 15,000 packets and then picking it up and dealing it again and dealing it again. It's why I don't like all these different variations on the 21 card trick, because whatever the variation is, it still involves having 21 cards and dealing them out again and again and again and again. And it's boring, you know, and I think that I think the problem with magicians is sometimes we have this term, filler tricks. Oh, it's an okay trick. It's a filler in between better tricks. Well, I don't even understand why you need a filler trick. You know, if you're being paid to perform and that's your job and they're giving you money in return for you performing, why do any filler? Why just make it killer? Just have killer routine after killer routine after killer routine, and don't put anything in there that's filler. So I don't like the dealing tricks or the counting tricks or stuff like that. As I say, I know I'm going to get people in the comments saying, "What about this trick? What about this trick?" There are a couple of exceptions, but generally, as a rule, if you've got, and I'm not talking about dealing once, you know, like any card at any number. Name a card, name a number, 20, deal down to 20. It's your card. I think that builds up tension. You know, you've explained the premise of the trick. You've explained what's going to happen. You ask them to name a card. You ask them to name a number. They deal down to that number and the card's there. And it is a lot of tension. Oh my gosh, is this going to work? There's no way he could get this right. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And, you know, kind of building up to that amazing moment right there. But if it's just like, right, okay, deal 10 cards, right, fantastic. Now take those 10 cards, deal them into 3 packets. Great, now pick the cards up and deal them into 10 packets. Great, now take another 10 cards and deal those on top. It's kind of like, oh my God, when this is going to end. So anything to do with dealing, I'm not really into, to be perfectly honest. Okay, so the next question is by George Rudd. Hey, George, how you doing? The question is, what are your top 5 living card magicians? My gosh, I don't know if you know this, George, but I don't script this stuff. So, you know, Sarah literally has given me her phone with all of the questions on it. I'm just going through the questions for pretty much the first time, because I do believe that if I sit down and try and script an answer for you, it wouldn't be as good as if I can just answer it off the cuff. So this is a totally off the cuff thing. Darwin Ortiz has to be there. I know a lot of people say that he's a bit dry and not particularly the most interesting performer in the world. And I totally get that. But Darwin Ortiz is amazing. And some of the stuff that he's done is so clever. Darwin Ortiz has to be there. I'm going to give you 5 in no particular order, if that's okay. So Darwin Ortiz has to be there. Also, I think Michael Close has to be on that list. Michael Close is incredible. A lot of people don't think of him as a heavy cardician because he does magic with so many different things. But I mean, I remember the first time I saw Michael Close at Blackpool perform the routine. I think it's in Workers number 3 with the card, the forehead and the salt shaker, which for me was the moment that I realized I wanted to do that style of magic. Before then, I was kind of trying to find my way. And then I saw them do this routine where over and over again, the card goes under the salt shaker, it goes onto the head, it goes back into the salt shaker, the deck's under the salt shaker. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And you know, his MC spread double lift is a move that I have done for years and years and years, and it's killer. So I'd say Michael Close is up there. Jason Ledane is absolutely amazing. His book Game Changer has some incredible magic in it. It's got some incredible card magic in it. Jason Ledane is absolutely fantastic. I'd have to have him up there as well. If you haven't checked out Game Changer, do that. I'm racing through. I'm definitely going to miss people because there's so many really good people. I'm going to put Daniel Chard in that list as well. A lot of people don't think of Daniel Chard. I interviewed him on the channel. If you haven't seen that, go check out the interview. But he's put a couple of DVDs out through RSVP. He's done a Penguin Live. Daniel Chard is amazing. He's an amazing cardician. And what he does really, really well is he's not just a move monkey. You see a lot of magicians, a lot of card magicians that are move monkeys. He's not like that. He's happy to take an easier approach. For him, the most important thing is the end result on the spectator. And because he works a lot commercially, he understands what makes a card trick commercial. And some of his card magic is absolutely brilliant. So I'd have to put Daniel Chard in there. I need one other person, don't I? I need one other person. And I'm going back and forth between a few different people right here. Going back and forth. I'm going to go Ben Earl. I kind of have to go Ben Earl, really, don't I? I mean, Ben Earl is just incredible. Just look at his performance on Penn and Teller Foolish. You know, it's just incredible. The stuff that Ben Earl puts out is just mind-bogglingly good. He is just the stuff that he can do with a deck of cards that nobody else would be able to do. I mean, it's just incredible. So there you go. I'll put Ben Earl on the list as well. I'm probably going to have missed people because this was literally off the cuff, and I apologize to those people that I've missed. But off the top of my head, spontaneously, those are the 5 guys that spring instantly to mind. Now let me know down below. What about you, George? And everyone else that's watching this, what are your favorite 5 card magicians? I want to know. Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, so the next question is by Stevie Seltzer Moves. Hey Stevie, how you doing? I hope you're well. Would you ever consider doing jamming sessions? Well, you know what? It's something that I'm kind of looking into. If you've gone onto the website for Magic TV, which is magictv.org, you'll see this thing called Netrix that I'm kind of putting together at the moment that's taking a lot of my time and effort. And one of the things that I want to plan on doing there is do regular jamming sessions. Because I have jamming sessions with my friends. Like almost every week, where we just kind of jam with each other on Zoom. And I absolutely love jamming with magicians. I really do, because I think that's when some really great ideas come out in the open. And especially if you're honest with each other and you say, look, I've got this move, I've got this trick, what do you think of it? Be honest. And as long as you can trust the people that you're jamming with to give you feedback, both positive and negative, and that's the problem. I think in magic, we're conditioned to give each other just positive feedback all the time, when realistically, I think the best thing to improve you as a performer and a creator is to get negative feedback. You know, if you've got a group of people that you're comfortable sharing stuff with and getting feedback and acting on that feedback, there's nothing more valuable. And yeah, I might be doing something with regards to jamming sessions in the future, maybe related to Netrix, maybe not, but there are things that I'm looking into. But the cool thing is you can just jam anywhere, anytime. You know, just put a thing on a Facebook group. Hey, any magicians want to have a jam? Let's set it up and get a Zoom account and just do it. The beautiful thing about the way that we're living at the moment, there's a lot of negatives, but one positive is I could literally set up a jamming session today for people all over the world. I mean, that's just how easy it is. So, you know, the answer is maybe down the line. I'm very busy at the moment with the channel, with Non-Stop Kids and with Slightly Unusual and everything else that I've got, but it is something I'm planning in the future. Okay, so the next question is by Danny Marco. Hey, Danny, how you doing? The question is, what do you consider to be an outdated prop that is a secret gem? Mine, for example, is the old Matchbox penetration. Well, the old Matchbox penetration is absolutely fantastic. You know, you've got lots of different things that's based on now, the most recent of which was Miranda's metal phone, Kayla Morelli's metal phone. But, you know, it's amazing for a reason, and that is, it's absolutely impossible. You're leading the audience down the garden path. They're thinking you're showing them this trick that's not very good, and then all of a sudden you pull the rug from under their feet, and you're like, well, this is incredible. So I totally agree with you. You know what? I'd say the egg bag first of all. I did a presentation of the egg bag on the channel about a week ago. You can look it up on the Magic Live playlist, and I see so many people that don't use the egg bag. And it's such a shame. I think it's considered like an old hat prop, or only stage performers use the prop, but it's not true. I use the prop in walk-around conditions. I use it in table hopping conditions. It was my go-to thing in restaurants. Yes, I use it on stage as well, but I don't see why more people don't use the egg bag. And it's so versatile. A lot of people think, oh, it's a one-trick pony, an egg appears out of a bag and that's it. But there's so much more you can do with it. There really is. Look at, I remember Curtis Cam doing an egg bag routine, and he finished off with the production of a frying pan out of it, which is absolutely hilarious. And Francis Minotti has got an amazing egg bag routine on his DVD that was put out through Paper Crane, and he's got this amazing thing where it's an egg bag routine, but the phone that he's been on the phone to his mom or something, and at the end the phone disappears while he's holding onto it and it's in the egg bag. It's just an incredible routine. It's typical Francis Minotti. You have to kind of watch it to understand what's going on, but there's so many different things you can do with an egg bag, and I think a lot of people overlook it. But and on that thing as well, I think that your old-fashioned style paddle should be on there as well. Turbo stick can get some amazing reactions, but you don't see many people doing turbo stick because they look at it as, oh, what's this? It's this little paddle. But you know, the reactions you get for it are just brilliant. And I'll give you one more as well. There's an old prop that I've had. I must have bought it from Blackpool about 15 years ago. It's called the dice through the mirror. And the idea is that you've got this mirror with a ribbon on it. Maybe somebody can tell me down below whose it is. I don't know. I have a feeling it was marketed by Derek Lever. I might be wrong. I don't know. I've had it for like maybe, it must be coming up on 20 years now. But it's a completely self-working trick. It's this mirror, and it's got this red ribbon on it, and it's got a dice, or a die, which you can examine, and it's got this kind of this plastic wallet that the mirror sits in, and it's just designed to hold the mirror, and the little ribbon thing sticks out from the side. And what happens is you put this mirror inside there, and there's the little trapdoor that opens, and you can see the mirror through it, and you put the dice on the mirror. And they hold onto the ribbon, and you're holding onto the sides, and they're holding onto the ribbon. So they know that the mirror is not moving because they're holding onto the ribbon. And then you get somebody else to cup their hands underneath the whole thing. And then you slowly see the dice just melt down through the mirror and go bonk and just land into the person's hands underneath. And immediately you can open it up and they can examine everything. It's that clean. Don't see anybody doing it anymore. But you know what? When I was doing table hopping in restaurants, I used to carry that thing around with me all the time, and I would have no problem at all going and doing that trick now at a gig. If I was going off to a gig tonight, I'd have no problem doing that thing. And you know what? It's one of those tricks that if it was released now with a really flashy trailer, it would sell thousands of products, but no one knows about it because it's completely old as the hills. So let me know in the comments down below. I can't remember the name of the trick. If you remember the name of the trick, let me know. And if everyone does it, if anyone here does it that's watching this video, please comment and tell people how good it is, because it's a bloody amazing trick. It's called Dice Through the Mirror. Okay, so the next question is by Andrew Young. Hey, Andrew, hope you're well. Question, Craig, what books would you recommend for the business side of magic? Not really magic books, but books that focus on aspects of the business side of things. Thank you. Okay, good question. So it depends on what aspect of business that you're looking into. I mean, obviously, there's some great books on marketing. There's some great books on sales. There's some great books on SEO and stuff like that. It depends on what you're kind of looking for. If I were you, There's 3 books that I would recommend. The first book I'd recommend, not necessarily a business book, but it's an important thing to learn in both business and also performing, and that's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Buying a book like that will make you a better magician, because it will show you what you need to do and what you need to say when you walk up to groups of people to win them over, because it's a difficult thing to do. As a magician, we're expected to walk over to complete strangers and win them over in seconds, and a lot of magicians aren't good at that. And if you buy something like How to Win Friends and Influence People, it will help you. But it won't just help that aspect as well. One of the most important things about running a business is understanding sales. Because without sales, you've got no gigs. Without gigs, you've got no income, no turnover. Without turnover, you've got no profit, and you don't really have a business, okay? So it all comes back to marketing and sales. And from a sales point of view, understanding how to actually win friends and influence people will help both when you're constructing emails to reply to people from a customer service point of view and also from a sales point of view, but it will also help as well when you're speaking to people on the phone. So book number 1, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Book number 2, any book by Brad Burton. Brad Burton is one of my business mentors. He is the UK's #1 motivational business speaker. His books are available on Amazon, or if you've got a Spotify account, you can actually get the first 2 books he ever wrote on Spotify. He actually did an audio book of it, and it is available on Spotify. His first book was Get Off Your Arse. Then he wrote Get Off Your Arse 2. Then he wrote Life and Business Just Got Better. And then his last book was Now What. If you're only going to read one of them, read Now What. But if I were you, I'd read all of them. And Brad's books are about how to get ahead in business, but it's not like a how-to guide. It's not like, right, first of all, do this on Facebook, now do this, and now do this. It's more of a mindset point of view. It's about understanding how you need to get your head, because in business, the difference between somebody who's successful and somebody who's not successful is mindset. It's as simple as that. And so understanding mindset is very important, and Brad's books will help you do that. And on the subject of mindset, the third book I'd recommend is from a guy called Cros Crossley, who is another mentor of mine and my wife's. And Cros Crossley calls himself the mindset technician. And he wrote a book called The Art of Getting Rich, or The Science of Getting Rich. And it's all about how to become successful in business. And it's all about understanding about what Cros calls a CMI, which stands for a clear mental image. And it's all about goal setting, and it's all about understanding that you need to create a goal in business, because if you don't create a goal, you're never going to be able to achieve success. And he likens it to a boat in the middle of the ocean. If you don't have a destination set, what's going to happen is that boat's going to go round and round and round and round and round, because it won't know where to go. Well, it's the same in business. You need to have a final destination. You need to have, as Cros calls it, a CMI, or a clear mental image. And that book is all about having the right mindset and having a clear mental image to help you to achieve business success and therefore fortune. So there you go. If you want some business recommendations, Science of Getting Rich by Cros Crossley, any of Brad Burton's books, but Now What is my favorite, and How to Win Friends and Influence People. Okay, so the next question is by Andy Cooper. Hey Andy, how you doing? And the question is, question for you, Craig. Apologies if you've had this topic already. With 2 magicians in the family, the other members of your household and your business colleagues too, I guess, will have seen loads of magic. I wondered what they would consider the most memorable trick they have seen, or the trick which fooled them the most. Okay. Well, yeah, you're right. And Ryland is a magician. And my wife, Sarah, bless her cotton socks, she does see so much magic. I mean, although I said to her the other day, you're not really a magician, but you're not a layman either. It's kind of like, if we use Harry Potter analogy, she's not a muggle, she's not a wizard, she's more like a squib, in that she understands a lot about magic. She nothing will fool Sarah, or hardly anything will fool Sarah, but she doesn't do magic herself. She's been to Blackpool more years than most magicians, and I remember she can do a one-handed perfect Pharaoh shuffle every single time. And the reason she can do that is because when she started going to Blackpool, she was sick to death of magicians just showing a trick after trick after trick that were just terrible. So she learned a one-handed perfect Pharaoh shuffle, just so when somebody said, hey, can I give you this pack of cards? I want to show you a trick. Can you shuffle it for me? She'd just do a one-handed shuffle, and it really just used to shut people up there and then. So yeah, she's not a magician. She knows a lot about magic. I asked her, her favorite magician is David Stone. every single time that she goes to Blackpool that David Stone's on, I'm going to lose her completely, because she's going to go straight into that lecture. She thinks that David Stone is absolutely brilliant, hilarious. I think she fancies him a bit, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, David Stone. I asked her specifically what she liked about the lecture, and she said that she liked the fact that it wasn't just a stuffy, boring lecture, and he scripted his lecture so it was kind of like a show. And David Stone does do that. If you've ever seen his lecture, that's a very, very, very good point. So her favourite magician is David Stone. I asked Thea who her favourite magician was, obviously outside of me and Ryland, and she said John Kimmons. If you know John Kimmons from the UK, he is an amazing family magician, an amazing family entertainer, and a hilarious ventriloquist. I'm doing an interview with him on the channel soon. John is brilliant, and Thea's right. He is absolutely awesome. The most memorable trick they've ever seen. I did ask Sarah about this as well. I didn't ask Thea, but I asked Sarah about this as well. And she said Penn and Teller's fish tank routine. If you haven't seen it, I say Penn and Teller, it's really just Teller. It's where you have somebody sitting down on the stage, and you've got Teller gets like an empty fish bowl. He's got a tank next to him, and he gets some water and it turns into coins. It's a bit like a miser's dream. All these coins just appear from nowhere. And then he takes the coins and he drops them into the fish tank, and it turns into a whole bunch of goldfish. That's her favourite routine. We got married in Las Vegas. It was pre-planned. It's not as seedy as it sounds. We got married in Las Vegas, and for our wedding night, we went to see Penn and Teller, and that's the first time both myself and Sarah saw that fish tank routine, and she was just absolutely blown away by that routine. I think if I asked her if I pushed her any further, I know she'd probably say other stuff by Penn and Teller as well, because she's a massive Penn and Teller fan. But yeah, I hope that answers the question. Right, so the next question is by Mr. Harmon. Hey, Mr. Harmon, I hope you're doing well. Mr. Harmon's question is, books or videos, which is better? Books, in my opinion, I've just shut that down. Books, in my opinion, are better, just because I love reading a good book. And I think if you're looking to make your act unique, you'll have a better chance doing that if you're studying routines out of a book, because everybody watches DVDs, everybody watches videos, but reading a book, you'll get stuff in there that's never been put on video, and so less people will be doing it. Having said that, I do love watching videos. I do love watching videos. I love watching live performances, and that's one of the problems I have with a lot of the tricks that come out these days. There's no live performance. I get really excited about seeing a live performance, and it really helps me kind of then focus on wanting to learn the trick. But if I don't see a live performance, I'm not as excited, to be perfectly honest. So I love books and videos. I think you have to be careful with videos, Mr. Harmon, because if you're not careful, you're going to end up trying to perform the routine, exactly as the person on the video's done it. And I remember doing that. I remember learning some of Bill Malone's routines off his L&L DVD set. And I remember going out to my residency about a week after learning one of these routines and trying it out for the first time. And I remember being in the restaurant going, Craig, pair tea, and not a single person joined in. And I felt about this big, and I'm like, right, okay, well, that's the last time I tell you. Just because it works for Bill, and my God, it does work for Bill Malone, it doesn't work for anyone else, and I just couldn't get it to work for me. So you have to be careful about taking on the mannerisms and the performance aspects and the script of the magicians that you're watching. You don't get that in a book, but there's certain routines in a book which are really hard to learn. It's so much easier to learn from in a video. It swings and roundabouts, but if I was ever going to pick one and one only, it would be a book. Right, so the next question is by Mexi Mex. Hey, Mexi Mex, how you doing? The question is, I recently bought a giant coin on a whim. I've got a few ideas for it, but what are your favourite routines with a giant coin? You know what? And then you've put in brackets 5x5 maybe. You've just given me a brilliant idea. I think I am going to do a 5x5 on giant coins, because there's so much you can do with them. Bizarro has a really nice chocolate coin gimmick that you can get from his site. I don't know if you've seen it, but the whole idea is you've just done a jumbo coin production with a 3-inch coin or whatever it may be, and you take the coin and you go, well, let me explain how it works. It's chocolate, and you peel back the silver, and you see chocolate underneath, and they think it's a chocolate coin, and then you put it back over and they look at it, it's metal. That's a really nice bit that you can do with the jumbo coin. Flurious by Gary Kurtz is the jumbo coin routine. I remember learning Flurious really, really wanting to learn it. I spent about 2 years learning the moves and the sequences and getting it absolutely perfect, because when I saw Gary do that for the first time, I was blown away by how good that was. I was just absolutely blown away. Flurious is exceptional. If you haven't seen it, it's in his book Unexplainable Acts. You can also get it on some of his VHS tapes. I know it's definitely on the VHS tapes. Hey, we've gone back to the 80s. DVDs. I know that the DVD from International Magic, that definitely has Flurious on there. But there's other places you can learn it as well. Flurious is really, really good. I do a 3-fly with jumbo coins. It's one of my own routines. I used it when I created it to enter a competition. And then I really liked it to the point that I actually carried on doing it. And it's really nice because you do 3-fly, and then you take the coins and one at a time you turn them into jumbo coins, and then you do 3-fly with jumbo coins. That's a really nice one as well. I've never published that, but I mean, if you want to see it, I can do it on a Magic Live at some point. Just let me know. And yeah, there's so many others. I'm not going to go into this too much now, but I am going to do this on a 5x5. I'm going to take your advice. One thing that I will say is, if you're not producing jumbo coins, you really should. Because honestly, when you do a coin routine and you make that jumbo coin appear, everybody just wants to see that jumbo coin. They just want to touch it and feel it and examine it. And if you've seen my DVD parlor, or I put it on the At the Table lecture as well, I've got a sequence that's designed in the real world to actually make 2 coins appear, a jumbo coin, a 3-inch coin, and then a 5-inch coin. It's well worth checking that out as well. Oh, and I'll tell you one more that I'm gonna point out right now. Garrett Thomas's Big Coin Little Purse. I remember the first time I saw Garrett do that. It fooled the pants off me. It is absolutely astonishing. It's a purse frame routine with a jumbo coin. I'm not going to spoil it for you. Go check out Garrett Thomas's Big Coin Little Purse. It's on his L&L DVD set, which is still available from places. You got to check that out. It is absolutely amazing. Okay, so the next question is by Grok Magician, and he asks, just wondering, are Reagan, Luke and Jack part of your stage act? If they are, could you please tell me about their backgrounds and what was your process in hiring them? Also, has your wife been involved in your stage act? My wife would not appear on stage if she was given £1 billion. She just is the polar opposite of me when it comes to being on stage. She does not like being the center of attention at all, to the point that she gets embarrassed if I do something in public that makes people look at her. I remember when I was first practicing fiber optics, like we're talking back about 13, 14 years ago. And, you know, I don't know if you guys do this, but as a magician, you know, when you're working on a new move, you have it in your pocket when you're walking about. Like, I'm always working on coin routines and coin moves, and I'll have a pack of cards in my pocket. I'm just always practicing new stuff and new ideas. Well, when I learned fiber optics, I was so blown away by it. I wanted to learn it as quickly as possible. So I put the fiber optics set in my pocket. And I remember walking through this, and she didn't realize. And I remember we went to this shopping center, and we were walking through this really busy shopping center, and she looked over at me, and I had a piece of rope around my neck. I had another piece of rope over here. I had another piece of rope here. Everybody was looking at me. Everyone was, and she was just so embarrassed. And she was like, "Put the ropes away now. Put the ropes away now." There is absolutely no way she would appear on stage ever. So no, she's got no. Her background is as she was a deputy head at a primary school. When I met her, she was a teacher, but then she got promoted to assistant head and then deputy head, and that's her background. And then she left that when we had our son Ryland, and she came in and worked with me in the business, and now she's managing director of both companies, so that I don't have to do that sort of stuff, because she's so super organized. And if it wasn't for her, I think the companies would have gone bankrupt years ago, and I would have just had a few expensive toys, and that's it. So Sarah's absolutely amazing. She really is. But she is not a performer, and she'll never be a performer. As for Luke, Jack and Reagan, they work in the office. They're our staff. So Reagan is in the admin department. So she's kind of heads up the admin department. So she's anything to do with customer service, administration, that's her thing. So if you ever book Slightly Unusual or Non-Stop Kids, and you have an email from the customer service department, it'll come through from Reagan. Luke and Jack work in the marketing department. So Jack is, we call him the content king. So Jack is the guy that pushes out all the content for Non-Stop Kids and Slightly Unusual primarily. But he does get involved in this YouTube channel as well. So Jack is the guy that does a lot of the magic live. So a lot of the and a lot of the stuff behind the scenes, like the tags and the titles and the descriptions and a lot of the thumbnails. Jack has something to do with that. And Luke kind of heads up the whole of the marketing department and comes up with all the crazy ideas. This whole YouTube channel was partly his idea, to be perfectly honest. So I roped them into a lot of this stuff. Yeah, it's handy having staff. Reagan, I will point out that Reagan is in the Illusion Show. Just because when she came into the company, the problem with an Illusion Show, right, and I don't know if you do illusions yourself, but the problem with an Illusion Show is you need several girls. You need several people that you can put inside boxes, because it's not a full-time role, and there's not enough work for one girl to full-time be in an illusion show, unless you're like touring holiday parks 6 days a week, which I don't do anymore. So because of that, you need more than one girl, so that you can go, hey, you're available for this date, I've just had a booking. No, you're not. Okay, I'll try the next one. So we've got several girls in the Illusion Show that are part of the show. Kat and well, a few others, doesn't really matter who. Kat is kind of the main assistant, but we were getting so many bookings, I needed another assistant in the show. And I said to Reagan, because obviously Reagan looks amazing, she's absolutely fantastic, she's a fitness bod, and I was like, you would be the perfect assistant in the Illusion Show. Would you like to get trained up for it? And she said yes. And for about a year now, a year before COVID, maybe 6 months to a year before COVID, she joined the Illusion Act, and she's brilliant. She's absolutely amazing. She's a natural on stage, and she has great stage presence. So, but that wasn't me hiring her to be in the Illusion Show. That was me needing somebody else in the Illusion Show, looking over at Reagan's desk and going, hey, Reagan, can I have a word? That's where that came from. That's the story behind Reagan, Jack, and Luke. It's not particularly exciting, but hopefully that answered your question. Okay, so the next question is once again by Stevie Seltzer Moves, and the question is, I'm a perfectionist and I get frustrated by my magic and everything perfect. How much of a big deal is it if you do something mildly wrong? For example, I looked at the deck, I palmed a card, and I forgot to look up at the spectator. I see some of your performances where you palm cards when everyone is looking, and you do it as if it's nothing, and the spectators are none the wiser. And that just comes from experience, Stevie. I've been palming cards for a very, very long time. But any move that you do in a real world environment, so to speak, any move that you do, things are going to go wrong in a magic performance. I mean, it's live performance. That's the whole point, especially when you're trying to deceive and trick people, which is basically what the MO of a magician is. Things are going to go wrong. I've lost cards a million times. And I think the important thing is not to stress too much about this and to practice jazzing. And what I mean by that is think about, right, this is what you should do in this situation. Think about look at all the tricks, all of the tricks that you're actually planning on performing in your act. Look at every single one of those tricks and analyze it and work out where that trick could go wrong. Okay, I could lose the card. I could not control the card. Okay, that's one way it could go wrong. I could get caught when I'm palming the card. Okay, that's another way it could go wrong. I could turn 3 cards over instead of 2 cards. Think about every single way that the trick could go wrong. And then once you've done that, work out what you would do in that situation. So if you do lose the control of the card, what do you do then? Which direction do you go into? How do you deal with it? And come up with a solution to every single possible thing that could go wrong with that trick. And then take your next trick and do it with your next trick. And then take your next trick and do it with your next trick, because then you're going to feel more comfortable. And it's all about being relaxed and being comfortable when you're performing. And if you're stressing yourself out too much and trying to be too much of a perfectionist and right, I've got to do this at just the right time, what's going to happen is you're going to be focusing more on that and less on presentation. And if you're focusing more on that and less on presentation, then you're ultimately not going to be as entertaining, which nobody wants. So the key is to make this whole thing entertaining as possible, right? And to make it entertaining, you don't want to even think about the moves. They should just happen. And the way to deal with that is to practice them until they're perfect, have a lot of flight time and get a lot of experience performing. But then the other thing is just make sure that you've analysed how the tricks can go wrong. Because then, if a trick goes wrong and you've turned over 3 cards instead of 2, and you're not looking at the card that's meant to be there, rather than just going, and having that internal dialogue of, shit, what do I do? You go, well, okay, I've already worked out what to do in this situation. This is what I'm going to do. And you just kind of go on to plan B, if that kind of makes sense. And that advice, we had a question earlier on about business. That advice also works in business. One of the big pieces of advice I can give you about business is do a SWOT analysis on your company and look at your company as a whole. And don't turn around to me and go, I haven't got a company. You have. Anybody who's self-employed that makes money from magic, if you are paying taxes, then you have a company. And the problem with a lot of magicians is they don't think of themselves as running a business, but they are. They're business owners. Everybody who's a self-employed magician or a semi-professional magician, they are a business owner to some extent, right? And what you need to do is look at your company, look at your business, think about all the different things that could go wrong within the company, and then work out what you do when they do go wrong. Because anybody who's stressed doesn't make good decisions, okay? If you're stressed, if you're under stress, you don't make good decisions. So how do you get past that? Well, the way to get past that is to make the decision before you get stressed. So, okay, what happens in the situation with this in my business? Well, what do I do? Well, if this happens, I do this, which is why I got caught off guard when COVID happens, because I constantly, every month, look at my business and I look at ways that things could go wrong and I try to figure out what I can do if it happens. I never thought, what would I do with my business if there was a global pandemic and I wasn't allowed to perform? Never thought of that. So when I realized that it was happening, which was pretty much in the beginning of March, I started stressing out. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. That was a very new experience for me. But we very, very quickly put a plan in place, which is why we started doing virtual events the day after the first national lockdown, because we put that plan in place. And the key thing is not to procrastinate. But I'm getting off on course now. I'm talking about business. Bringing this back to performing, analyze your tricks. Think about where they could go wrong and then come up with outs to fix that if it does go wrong. Because that way you're never going to get stressed when something happens that shouldn't happen. Okay, so the next question is by Barry Allen. How you doing, Barry? You okay? And the question is, do you think that with the seemingly never-ending raft of new magic effects and gimmicks now being released, that magicians new to magic are overlooking the essentials of sleight of hand, misdirection and timing that many of us cut our teeth on, and are therefore perhaps missing out on the brilliant material and teachings of Vernon Slidini, etc., etc.? Barry Allen, you are my new hero. I'm telling you right now, you're my new hero. I've literally just read that today. And yes, the rant that went up on Friday, and if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It was from 2 days ago. The rant that went up on Friday was basically about this subject, which is the amount of tricks that are coming out. Actually, was it? Haha, I'm giving you a spoiler. No, the rant that came out this Friday was on, no, okay, just ignore me. I filmed the rant for next Friday, giving you a spoiler about this now. The rant that's coming up on Friday is about this subject. The rant that just went out 2 days ago, so I'm filming this on Wednesday, so I'm filming this before any of this comes out, so I'm confusing myself. The rant that went up a couple of days ago is about exposure in magic. Yes, but the rant that's coming up next Friday, that rant is about what you've just talked about. And I completely agree with you 100%. I think that the tricks that come out these days, in the old days, right? In my old days, people used to bring out a product. And when the product came out, it wasn't a half-assed idea. It was a well thought out routine that they spent years working, and you didn't have downloads back then, but if it came with a DVD, generally as a rule, everything was so well thought out. Everything was so well thought out but these days, a product comes out and it's like, this is the gimmick, this is how to use it, this is what you do when it breaks. There's no live performance footage. There's no talk about theory or why this works or how it works. There's nothing like that. It's just gimmick after gimmick after gimmick. And people are buying all of these gimmicks and spending hundreds of pounds on gimmicks. And if they took a fraction of that money and bought a book or a set of DVDs which taught them, as you say, the basics of misdirection and communication and all that really good important stuff, they'd become much better performers. So yeah, I'm not going to dwell on this right now, Barry, because you are a mind reader, but there is a rant coming up on Friday where I'm going to be talking about this in great detail. So look out for it. But yes, Barry, I completely agree with you. It's an issue. And as a community, I don't know what we can do about it other than maybe trying to get the magic producers to stop releasing such a massive collection of brand new crappy tricks on a day-by-day basis. But look out for that video. And yeah, seriously, Barry, my hat's off to you because I completely agree with you 100%. Okay, so the next question is by Lee Milne. How you doing, Lee? You okay? And Lee Milne says, can you talk about originality? How can we take an existing piece of magic and make it our own? And that is a very, very, very good question. How do you take an existing piece of magic and make it your own? And you know what? I've recently done an interview with Dave Bonsall, which will be going up on the channel very, very soon. And Dave talks about this in great detail. And he goes really into the kind of the originality side of things and how to make tricks your own. But the big piece of advice I give you is if you've got an existing trick, think about, you can either change a trick from presentationally or technically, right? So presentationally, I personally prefer performing magic and presenting magic if it's something I'm really interested in. So for example, I don't play cards. I don't do gambling demos. I don't do poker deals. I don't do 10-card poker deals. I'm sure they're very entertaining to certain people, but it's not entertaining to me. Now, could I fake it? Absolutely. Could I learn how to, could I learn about poker, and could I learn about the different rules of the game and then learn loads of different poker deals? Yes, but it's still not something ultimately I'd be interested in. So I think it's really, really important to make things that is something that you're interested in. So a lot of the magic I do, the presentations are based around stuff I'm into. You must have noticed on the Magic Lives, I talk about TV, I talk about films, I talk about geeky stuff, I talk about Doctor Who, I talk about wrestling, I talk about the Avengers, I talk about superheroes. This is all stuff that I'm interested in. And even if the audience I'm performing for aren't interested in it themselves, it makes me passionate about it. So if I go up to a group of people and I go, hey, I've got to tell you something, guys, I'm really into films. I don't know if you guys are into films. I'm really into films. And we're going to try and do something here right now. I want you to think of a celebrity, and whatever it may be, right? If I can perform something and I can make it that I'm interested in it, I'm going to be more passionate about the performance. So the first piece of advice I can give you is, take a trick and look at how you can adapt the presentation. And the perfect example here is Tom Crosby. You know, Tom has gone to the nth degree here, but he's basically done the same thing. What he's done is he's completely adapted his entire act, because Tom will openly tell you he was a geek. He was a massive geek. Tom has been a geek for years and years and years. Now he's known as the performing nerd. It's not like he's learned, it's not like he's pretending to be a geek. It's not like he's pretending to be a nerd because he wanted to try and capitalize on a niche that nobody else was capitalizing on. Far from it. He looked at what he's into, which is nerdy, geeky stuff, and he completely recreated his entire act to fit within that premise, right? So presentationally, look at your character and look at the magic you do and work out how you can adapt that to what you're into. I don't know what you're into, Lee. I've got no idea. But look at what you're into and see if you can adapt the magic accordingly. You know, I do magic workshops for kids from time to time. And I always encourage them to do the same thing. I always say the most important thing about magic is the presentation and speaking about it and presenting it. And the way to actually make it interesting is by taking stuff that you're into and adapting the presentation to make sense with what you're into. The second and final piece of advice I can give you, and maybe we'll do a longer video about this at some point, but the other piece of advice I can give you is look at the environments in which you're performing, look at the areas in which you're performing. And what I mean by that, if you're a restaurant performer, right, and you perform primarily in restaurants, have a look at what is in a restaurant. What Because the thing is, rather than pulling out a deck of cards, for example, or pulling out some coins, can you do magic with something that's in the restaurant? Well, look, there's a salt cellar on the table. Can you do magic with a salt cellar? What can you do with a salt cellar? Just get a blank piece of paper in front of you and write down ideas. What can you do with the salt cellar? And you don't have to make them clever ideas. It can be, you don't have to have a solution to it. You don't have to have a method for achieving this. Just come up with ideas. Right, I've got a salt cellar in front of me here. What can I do with it? Well, I can make the salt cellar float in the air. Okay. I can make all the salt disappear from the salt cellar. Okay. I can make the salt change into something else. Okay. And write down all of these ideas. And when you've got all of these ideas, you go, okay, well, that sounds really cool. How can I come up with a method for that? Is there something out there that achieves that method? And if there is, great. If there's not, is there something out there that you could adapt to fit that method? And if not, can you create the method yourself? So look at your performing environment and look at the stuff that's organically around in your performing environment and work out. And that's where chop came from, my routine chop. I wanted to be able to perform chop cup with a borrowed cup because I was working in when chop was created. I had a residency in a restaurant and they hired me to perform outside in the summer. And they all had these sort of because it was a garden, you couldn't have actual glasses. So they had like cardboard cups. And I was like, wouldn't it be really cool if I could do a chop cup with one of those? Well, okay, but what would I use as the cup? Okay, well, I can use that. What would I use as a ball? It'd be weird just taking a ball out and using a cup like that. Okay, what if I used a rolled up bill or build up bill? Okay, that'd work really, really well. But now how can I... Okay, but well, hang on. If I'm using a bill, maybe I could have it going to an impossible location at the end. Okay, so then I'd need to get it signed. Well, now I've got a pen in play as well. Okay, that's awesome. The pen would be organic, and it's that sort of thing. It's the same with Keymaster. You know, when I created Keymaster, it was like, okay, I've always got keys on me. So how am I going to use these keys in a magic trick? What can I do? And it's about looking in the environment in which you're performing in, looking at the tricks you do, and seeing if you can adapt them. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I'll probably do a longer video on a magic stuff about this because this is a really great question, Lee, about how you can about originality. I think that's something that I will talk about, but hopefully that's kind of whet your appetite. But let me know down below, was this useful? I'd love to hear from you. Okay, so the next question is by Bardin, and he makes a really, she, don't know, but Bardin makes a really important point here, which I'm going to read out to you. She says, a guy named Alberti was credited to be the creator of the ambitious card routine. That's taught all the time in books, videos, and streamed. The Chinese sticks, chop cup, color vision box, finger chopper, money paddle, the Svengali deck, to name a few, are all in today's magic kits, exposed to a large population of kids and beginners for money, never going back to the original inventor. How many people, pros or amateurs, have taught or published how to do Crazy Man's handcuffs, Elmsley counts, frustration counts, linking pins, out to lunch, so on and so forth. I get that part of the profession of magic needs to be about respect. Sometimes to me it has more to do with petty bickering. Maybe the magic organisation should all get together and outline specific standards for tricks on how they can be taught, to whom and when. The current standards of you shall not reveal is unrealistic and unattainable at its face, doesn't really advance the art. And I completely and totally agree with you. And the rant that I did on Friday, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's all about this whole topic of exposure and you shall not expose. And I think that there's a certain I think there's elitism in magic. I'm just going to come out and say it. There is elitism in magic where there are certain people that don't want any secrets to be given to anyone under any circumstances. It's not just that the doors to the secrets are shut, they are locked and barricaded and padlocked. And I don't think that's the way it should be. I totally agree with you. I think that we need to be more inclusive. We need to be welcoming new people into the fold that need to be learning magic. And I think that exposing magic to a certain degree is good. Now, I don't agree with exposing I know you don't have a problem with it, or you've made a good argument about that, but I don't agree with exposing marketed routines that are still available to buy. I really don't, because I know how many creators make their living by selling those tricks, and I don't think that we should be seeing tutorials on a trick that's just come out 6 months ago, no matter how good it is or how terrible it is. There shouldn't be a tutorial up there. However, I don't have a problem with tutorials because that's how people get interested in magic. You can go back and watch the rant that I put up on Friday if you want to. I go into this in more detail detail, but I completely, wholeheartedly agree with you 100%. Okay, so the next question is by Mr. Harmon. Mr. Harmon says, any tips on how to palm objects if you have gaps between your fingers? Keep your fingers shut, dude. That's the best piece of advice I can give you. Keep your fingers shut, which is a difficult thing to do because we open, your fingers kind of open naturally, right? But the best piece of advice I can give you is keep your fingers closed. Condition yourself to close your fingers. You'll notice when my hands are at rest, even when I'm talking like this and my hands are at rest, my fingers are closed. I've conditioned my fingers to be closed all of the time because I don't want any windows when I'm doing coin magic or anything like that. So my fingers are always closed. If they're at rest, the only time they're not is if I'm making a gesture or something like that. And it's really just practice. That's all it is. I remember a friend of mine about 5 years ago had a very similar problem and nothing he did would work. So he wrapped gaffer tape around his fingers every single day. Every single day, when he wasn't working or needing his fingers, he wrapped gaffer tape around them and he'd walk around with gaffer tape wrapped around his fingers the whole time. He did that for about a month and they just automatically stayed shut. I'm not saying that's the best way to deal with it, but that's what my friend did and it worked for him. All I can say to you, Mr. Harmon, is it's just practice. It's just practice. Windows are the bane of any coin magician's life. They really are. And the way to eliminate windows is just to practice. You need to consciously make a conscious effort to make sure that those windows in your hand are eliminated until you get to a point where it becomes second nature. That's the best piece of advice I can give you. Right, the final question is by Tom Oki. Hey Tom, how you doing? Hello Craig. Hi Tom. I understand that you have a question you need to blah, 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 blah. That's why I asked you. Anyway, to the question. I have heard you rave about two different stacks, the Shadow stack and the Redford stack. Very true. Ironically, I use mnemonica. That said, that I'm interested in. And I was wondering which one you like the best and which you think is superior. Thanks in advance. Right, I don't know. This is I don't know. I've been using stacks for a long time. I use the mnemonica stack. I originally learned Shadow stack back in the day. I originally learned Shadow stack. I do like a lot of the innovations that Tom has got with Shadow stack. There's quite a lot of things in Shadow stack that people might not be aware of. It's a story deck. Don't know if you know that, but it's a story deck. You give it one Pharaoh shuffle and it becomes a really cool, interesting story deck. You know, like Sam the Bellhop. So it's a story deck, which is incredibly cool. As well as being a story deck, I love the innovation. I don't really want to give too much about the Shadow stack away, but Tom's got this whole edge marking idea, which is just absolutely brilliant. He's got lots of spelling tricks built into it. He's got a bunch of other stuff built into it. It's brilliant. The reason I don't do Shadow stack is because I learned Shadow stack, forgot it, and then I relearned it, and I just happened to relearn mnemonica because I didn't have Shadow stack in front of me. Now, I am considering changing from mnemonica to the Redford stack after watching the Patrick Redford interview. Watching and doing the Patrick Redford interview. I have never considered the Redford stack before. I've always been a big fan of Patrick Redford, but it's not a stack that I've ever considered doing. Having spent a couple of hours interviewing him over, as you saw, if you haven't seen the interview, you could go check out the Patrick Redford interview. It's amazing. Having interviewed him, I kind of love a lot of the benefits of the Redford stack. There are so many great benefits. I love the fact that with a couple of shuffles, just a couple of overhand shuffles, you can get yourself into size 7s, because there's a lot that I do with size 7s, and having a cyclical stack like that is really great. And then a few more shuffles and it gets you back into Redford stack. It's brilliant. I love the idea. So yeah, I'm leaning towards learning the Redford stack. I don't know, because it's going to take massive effort on my part to actually do that, and I'm very comfortable with mnemonica, but it is something that I'm considering doing. I've just ordered both of his books. I've never had his books before. I've just ordered the Temporarily Out of Order and Slightly Out of Order, and I'm going to watch them. I'm going to read them. I'm going to look at them, but based on what Patrick told me, I'm seriously heavily leaning towards learning the Redford stack. I can't really tell you any more than that. The Shadow stack is amazing. I did it in the past. There are some great features built into it. The Redford stack has got 2 books on it, and he's writing a 3rd book on it. And I just love, if you saw the interview, the thing he did with me with Google Calendar, I just love that idea of, and that's just part of the book. You know, you can get somebody to go on their phone, open up Google Calendar and they can do this amazing trick that he's created, and it's sitting there and you can do it over Zoom or you can do it anywhere. Absolutely brilliant. So I'm leaning towards the Redford stack. If I had to make a decision right now, it'd be Redford, but I'm not taking anything away from Tom's stack. The Shadow stack is absolutely brilliant. The one that I wouldn't bother with is Mnemonica, because although Mnemonica, the book, is great, it doesn't have the benefits of the other two stacks. So I don't think you'll go far wrong, but there's a lot more stack-specific material for the Redford stack, because he's brought 2 books out and he's bringing out a 3rd book. There's a lot more stack-specific material with the Redford stack than there is with the Shadow stack, because Tom brought out 2 DVDs on that, and then that's kind of it. So maybe that will push you in that direction. Don't know. So that's it, guys. That is another Q&A in the bag, as Riley would say. Let me know in the comments down below what you think, and please make sure to ask questions. I can only do these Q&As if you ask me questions. Any questions that you ask, I will answer for you. Nothing is off the table. So let me know in the comments down below what you want asking for next week. And once again, guys, to the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for supporting the channel. I'm going to be back tomorrow with a 5x5 and a Magic Live at 6 o'clock. I'll see you then. Thanks a lot again for watching. My name's Craig from Magic TV.